Ah, yes, friends. Officially on a Monday, we welcome you in through the rain and the shine. After a long 3 days, Andy, we're back for draft week. I'm Adam Arbrecht, and that is the healthy, wealthy, and wise Andrew Makowitz.
This might be Adam Arbrecht's favorite week of the year. Not only does he love the NFL draft, but he loves nothing more than mocking the NFL draft and maybe some mock day trades. I mean, this is really like his Super Bowl, his Christmas. Adam, how pumped are you for this week?
Nothing that goes on after Thursday and the weekend will ever reach the expectations that I've set for myself, for the season, for the team, for the world. Really, this is my Kwanzaa. This is my Hanukkah. This is 8 days of crazy nights for me. You may find out if you check the YouTube channel, there's 16,000 mock drafts between now and Thursday. But today we come in specifically to do our mock draft, and we said last week when we were on the show that we wanted to do two things this week. So today it's going to be what we think the New York Football Giants should do in the upcoming draft. On Wednesday, we're going to go through what we think they will do in the draft. So obviously the rumors and speculation around maybe even trade ups, as we touched on at one point, trade down possibilities for a guy in Dave Gettleman who's never done that in his career. All of those kind of things will factor in more heavily on Wednesday's mock. But today, it's about Andy Makowitz in the big chair or myself and trying to decide how do we best construct the best possible team for the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this. I think when we watch a lot of other people do mock drafts, they just in their mind take what they want and they assume that that's going to be closest to the pin for the Giants. How Dave Gettleman's thinking is going to be drastically different than how we are, but it's going to be great to find out how the roster ends up being constructed. At the end of the day, I might look around and say, well, Adam, you making that decision in round one or round two really impacted everything else. I kind of like how the board's set up for you a little bit more than me. So this is going to be really good. And then I think on Wednesday's show, as you mentioned, we're going to talk more what we think the Giants are going to do. Like get into Dave Gettleman's head. He said, it's an urban myth I don't trade back, but we all know Dave Gettleman probably will not trade back. So are you excited, Adam? Are you ready for this? What's the format? How are we going to do this?
I'm excited. I'm ready to roll. We're basically going to pin ourselves to about 2 minutes for each selection. We'll be able to bat around our thinking around each pick. If we choose to make trade downs, we can. We can even walk through some possible offers that maybe came in the door. But this basically is going to be 11, 42, 76, 116, 196, and 201. We're going to run through the first 4 rounds in more detail. The back end, we're just going to give you kind of the reference points of positions or guys you may want to keep your eyes on. And we'll probably post up something official on social media that says, hey, these are our lock-in targets at these spots. But we're going to hit the ground running here. I'm going to give you first serve on it. You're going to be up on the board, Andrew Makowitz, at 11. Where are the New York Football Giants going? Andy Makowitz, GM.
All right, so I am running one of the simulators in the background, so we can give you guys some things in real time. It's not like I have all this prepared, so that's kind of how it's going to be for the Giants on the clock. So,
by the way, for the context, when Andy said let the people know how we're going to do this, what he wanted me to tell you was we're using the Pro Football Focus Draft Simulator, and we're doing this in real time. That was the big tidbit. You're on the clock, sir.
There we go. Okay, so I have put the Giants at 11, and I have started it, and it is now to me on the draft simulator. Looking at the board, no huge surprises. All 3 of the big wide receivers are off the board in Chase, Smith, and Waddle. Pitts is obviously off the board. Penei Sewell's off the board. What's interesting in this mock draft is that Kyle Pitts actually dropped to 10 to Dallas, which we know Jerry would just die a happy man if you could get Kyle Pitts at 10. What it means for me at 11 is the big wide receivers are off the board, so there's a little bit of a dip off. There's no edge rusher, or outside linebacker that I'm looking at. Micah Parsons is sitting there at 9, but Adam, I have to be consistent. There's a lot of off field and maturity issues with Parsons that make me just want to stay away. I don't want to deal with that headache again. So really what that leads me to is seeing Rashawn Slater is still on the board and sitting here and saying, guard might be a little bit more of an issue for me than tackle. But the good news is Rashawn Slater has the ability to play both potentially. And depending on how our line shakes out, adding Rashawn Slater to this room and pushing back down on the guard spot or on the tackle spot and getting him to start with our first round draft pick, Andrew Thomas, last year is an opportunity I can't pass up. So I would take Rashawn Slater with the 11th pick.
And I like it. Listen, I think that it's a sound move, right? You and I have talked about it back and forth, what it would mean for the New York Football Giants to lock up, quote unquote, the offensive line positional need that they have and make it feel like it's a feasible reality to go into this season feeling confident at every offensive line position. I mean, it's something that we haven't been able to say in a long time for the New York Football Giants. So obviously, I think that would be a very nice move for Big Blue. Now, on the other side of it, as we said, coming into it, we talk about what we think maybe Gettleman will or will not do. By the way, likewise, in this simulation, Kyle Pitts there at 10. And just for reference, all of the top 5 quarterbacks have gone by the time we get to our selection at 11, which I think rings pretty true, by the way. You know, if you think about the way a lot of these guys are being discussed, including Trey Lance moving up or Justin Fields now getting a little bit more buzz, even with the San Francisco 49ers at 3, somebody's going to come up. If anybody wants him, like Mac Jones, even, he may be the guy that should be furthest out of it. I still think someone's going to come up and get him. Or, like in my simulation, it's just the Denver Broncos sitting pat and ending up getting a quality QB for themselves at the 9th overall selection. The problem here for me now is, in the vein of what I would do, I'd be looking to trade down. I think the New York Football Giants are in a spot here where offensive line is obviously a big need, and we've discussed that. And I think Rashawn Slater is a fantastic selection. But when you consider the idea that edge rusher is as paramount as any spot on this team, I do wonder, and if it's me, I'm looking at the board and saying, I think there might be value in the 2nd round, in the 3rd round, potentially. So maybe there's the ability to address my offensive line need in one of those rounds, as opposed to up at the top here. I tried to trade, just to be clear. I wanted to trade. I fielded some phone calls. I looked for some opportunities. The Arizona Cardinals were one of those teams that wanted to come up from 16, because right now on the board, they'd have the options of Micah Parsons, right? Even teams like the Chicago Bears may want to come up just to secure their player in Rashad Bateman, even though that seems like that'd be way too rich for my blood there. The only other option that I'm going to try here is with the Chargers. And that's because the Chargers are a team that are in line for an offensive lineman. So I'm going to take a shot on this here and see if it does work out. If it doesn't, then I'll be forced to pick here at 11 and live with the results, as they say, because I've already tried a couple simulations in the back.
You know what? You sound like Dave Gettleman. He's like, you know how many phone calls I've had where I kind of had a trade altogether and then it didn't work out, so I had to take a player? Like, that is what Adam is dealing with. You are getting Gettleman, as we like to say. As
a matter of fact, you are. Now, here's the problem, and this is maybe to Gettleman's point. You can want to trade down, but it takes 2 to tango. So I fielded calls from the Arizona Cardinals. I fielded calls from even the Chargers, because I would have been willing to trade down a couple of spots and still get the guy that I was after. If it's me, there's maybe the unsexy thing. Rashawn Slater is there. He solves the need. He's plug and play at the guard position. And because we're unable to have a trade back here, it means that we're going to be all the way there at 42 with other needs on our board. So we have to be willing to take best player available, plug our needs. Slater's been there consistently over the past month at the top of the draft. So it is going to be Rashawn Slater for me as well at the tackle position, and we'll move our way towards the top of the 2nd round in 42. Before you go in on your selection, Andy, this is the concern though, right? Like the balance of this is a little bit tricky, because I think you and I would both agree, if it was possible for us to just, even with a trade downs or not, be picking at, say, 15 or 16, and if Slater was there, great, but Vera Tucker would be just as well for us, right? I think you'd prefer to be getting any of these picks a few spots back and maybe having some extra assets.
Yeah, that's the tough part, especially the way the draft has played out so far in our simulations. Adam, all 3 of the wide receivers are off the board for me, and it sounds like they obviously were for you. If one of them was on the board, does that change anything from how you're thinking, or the fact that Slater's there and you can't trade back, is he the guy that you're taking regardless of who else is on the board?
Yeah, without the ability to trade back, I stay pretty locked into Slater. And I think on Wednesday, the discussion around if a wide receiver was there, how would that impact Dave Gettleman's thinking? I think that's the big question that's going to be interesting to watch on Thursday.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel like I could see things changing. I wouldn't be upset getting a top 3 wide receiver because I do think that there's a drop off there, when we talk about talent. But I'm happy with Rashawn Slater. Like I said, can play guard or tackle. Really makes me feel more comfortable with my offensive line. We've invested heavily over the last 2 years. And now I'm moving into the second round, and I have the 42nd pick, Adam. And so when I